Good morning, LinkedIn and Facebook and wherever else you may be watching. How are you? Welcome to the Ignite Leadership Series. Thrilled to be here. This time last week, I didn't have a guest lined up, and exciting news. You don't just have to listen to me for half an hour. I do have a guest lined up, and I will be bringing Dave Kofoed in shortly. I'll talk a little bit about him once he is with us. I'm just going to check and get myself so that I can see my LinkedIn feed as well. Today is going to be a little bit of a different format. So we will be talking about career and highlights and so forth, but we're going to make it a little bit topical and focus in a little bit on one of our guests' expertise, which is Zoom. So excited for him to show us some of the cool things you can do to enhance your Zoom experience, seeing as we are all using it so much. So that's really exciting. What I would love from you guys today is I would love you to get involved in the conversation. This is not a one-sided show. This is something that is here for you to gain value from. And so I bring mentors to you so that you can ask them questions as well as learn from their experiences. So please do get involved. Firstly, let us know you are watching. Let us know where you're watching from. Whether you're watching the live or the recording, we would love to just know that you are there. And I will stop from time to time and check the chat box and look for any questions or comments or insights. So I'd love you to be sharing with us. It's much more fun when we're all involved in the conversation. So I look forward to hearing from who is on. As usual, just to sort of give you an understanding as to why I do this, I am lucky enough to have worked 20 plus years now in the IT world, working with people and their careers. So I am both a recruiter and a career transition coach. I just wanted to drop in today that I am actually putting an offer out on my coaching for the end of the financial year. So if you've been thinking about changing careers or moving jobs, or you're struggling with the job search or the interview process or anything along those lines, please do reach out. There hopefully will be a link come into the chat for you so that you can book in a 15-minute free discovery session with me. So that's just a little bit left of field today. I wanted to put that out there. There is also a membership that you can get access to for free for 30 days, and then it's $10 a month, and that incorporates a lot of the leaders and mentors who come on the show here, some pop-up coaching videos, and some soon to be some masterminds and roundtables as well. So would love to see you in there at some point. Again, we will share the links with you here in the chat very soon. So suffice to say, we're going to invite Dave into the conversation, and I will tell you a little bit about him. As I say, please let us know you are there, and please do get involved in the conversation. Dave, how are you?
Good morning, Rebecca. I'm very well. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm going to talk about you. What you need to do right now is to sit and smile sweetly while I say good things about you, right. And just nod a lot. Okay, so Dave Kofoed is currently Senior Sales Specialist at VMWare, and he is an entrepreneur from way back. So he has a very interesting career history that I would love to discuss and sort of delve into a little bit with him. He's always looking for growth and finding new ways of doing things, and trust me, finds some really interesting and innovative ways of doing things. He actually founded back in the day a business that provided audiovisual services to NBN Co in the very early days, and the Office of the Minister of Communications, Stephen Conroy, as this whole new world of the internet was really, or our high-speed broadband internet. I'm saying that with a tone, honestly, sorry, was sort of being created. And he was responsible for some really cool little projects which involved, almost live TV on the across the broadband network and so forth. So very excited that hopefully Dave's going to share some of these things with us. But firstly, Dave, what I would love you to do is, because you have had a really eclectic career, and so what was the sort of goal in the early stages? Did you want to get into IT? Did you want to get into sales, leadership? What was your focus, and how did it happen?
So I always had a passion for IT, and in the early days, I had a real challenge getting into anything to do with IT. So I spent a lot of time in sales. I've worked in various different sales roles when I got out of high school, and I was always trying to get into IT, but with nobody giving me a go, I decided, right, well, I'm going to get myself into IT. I'm going to create my own business. So I ended up, the first business I built was a business called Kofoed. And that was a car finance brokerage that was a totally online business, and 100% of it was basically search engine optimization, getting leads, bringing those leads in, turning them into revenue. So I designed the website, built the website, coded the website, all of that stuff without using any other tools. I decided I was going to learn PHP coding, all that sort of stuff. Built a big pardon?
I said, as you do. Yeah, that's what
as you do. It was just, I just made the decision. I was like, I'm going to do this, right? I want to get into IT, and my goal was to eventually be representing a product that I really liked. But I knew that there was going to be steps to that progression, and so that's when I started Motorcorp. Anyway, long story short, successful business, worked out very well. If you typed car finance into a browser in the early 2000s, you would see Motorcorp Finance come up below the top 3 results. By the way, Commonwealth Bank, ANZ, Westpac, all those guys were well below me. So,
right. Wow. Well
so
done.
with no money in my pocket, I created a business, and thousands of leads coming in a month, and that worked very well.
Amazing.
So that's the first thing.
Tell me about the video stuff, the video services business.
So from that business, I worked with somebody in the IT world by the name of Sam Dorr, who's an absolutely lovely guy, and he helped me out with my communication service. So that was anything to do with the phone systems. And we got to chatting after I'd sold Motorcorp Finance to my business partner, and he offered me a job as a coder, because he saw some of the coding that I'd done in Motorcorp, and I thought, that sounds like a fun opportunity. So I gave it a go, and ended up writing a system that configures handsets, desk phones, that sort of thing. So that wasn't particularly exciting, but Sam and I had a lot of conversations, a lot of long lunches, and it was just at the time when the NBN was coming to Brunswick, and we thought to ourselves, Brunswick, so anyway, that Brunswick, and we had a conversation one day where we thought we could probably leverage this thing. I mean, we're already in the area, we're there ready to go. Why don't we try and build a business out of having the NBN? And so we came up with some ideas, and one of them was cloud on-ramping. So what we would do was, back in those days, if you had ADSL 2+ and you had a terabyte of data on your mail server, you were looking at like 6 months to get that up to the cloud. Like ADSL 2+, we don't remember really, because it seems like such a long time ago, but it was like half a megabit upload, 1 megabit upload. It was terrible. We've got 40 megabits now, and when Sam and I started the business, we had 40 megabits times 4, because we bought 4 parallel NBN connections. So we were taking people's data, we're moving it to Google or whatever cloud service they wanted to use. So we picked up the phone, we called everybody that we could possibly think of. We ended up getting onto the office of the Minister for Communications, and they were very interested in our story. The next thing you know, we were having a lot of conversations with them, and NBN Co came into the picture as well, because they were interested in how we were creating success from the NBN. I'd worked in AV alongside sales previously, and so I came up with some ideas and pitched them. They loved them, and so in the end, we ended up doing every live stream, every launch of the NBN from everywhere around Australia. Whenever Stephen Conroy was there pressing the red button saying the NBN is live, it was our equipment, our guys, our teams that were doing the live streams, connecting. Well, in one case, Darwin to Launceston. There was a bunch of school kids in Darwin that were talking to a bunch of scouts in Launceston, and it was 4K, big screen, live. So they trusted us to do that. And you've got Channel 7, Channel 10, ABC, everybody there waiting for something to go wrong, if I'm perfectly honest. So when when the Minister for Communications puts that much faith in you and puts something that important in your hands, you know you're onto a winner. So that was great until the election. But let's not talk about that.
Yeah. Okay. And then you spent some time with Samsung as
Great.
well. Yeah.
Yes, and I have you to thank for that, Rebecca. Thank you very much for introducing me to them. I was National Solutions Architect for Samsung for about 3 years. That was a fascinating role, and I had the distinct pleasure of meeting a gentleman by the name of Mr. Ian Aitken, who was the CTO at the time, Australian CTO, and he offered me a role as he was leaving Samsung and starting a pretty exciting business in the startup world again, creating a device called the Sophie Hub, which is a device similar to a Google Home, I guess you could say, which allows people to live at home longer rather than going into care. And it does things like reminds you of medication and, tells you, it picks up anomalies in your behavior as well and notifies your relatives or whoever it is that you want on your notification list that something's not quite right. So I've got the device here. This was one of the prototypes that we built, and that was interesting. I'd never worked in that kind of field before, and I ended up designing and building the electronics and a lot of the aesthetics as well, and the interface, the dial on the front, all that sort of stuff. It was fascinating.
Yeah. So innovation is your middle name. You've just everywhere you've been innovating.
Look, I guess so. I mean, I guess I have this terrible habit of getting bored, and I have to do something interesting, and it's always swinging for the fences. I like to walk in a JB Hi-Fi and see something that I designed. To be perfectly honest, it's a bit of an ego boost, and that particular device, I knew that was an opportunity to do something special and create something that would be in the commercial zeitgeist for many, many years to come, and it ended up winning an award recently at CES in Las Vegas, which I was absent for, obviously, because I've moved on since Sophie Hub, but it was a great opportunity.
Yeah. Okay. And then, I can't remember what the step was in between, but VMware now.
Yes.
And you're in a sales specialist role there for what in particular?
Yes. That's right. So I look after the telcos across Australia and New Zealand with respect to end user computing products. So we have a channel there, a route to market through Spark in New Zealand, Vodafone in New Zealand, and Telstra in Australia, of course. And it's my responsibility to make sure that everything goes smoothly there and that everybody can sell our products and everybody's happy.
Awesome. So you've got a distributed marketplace you've had to cover in a challenging environment across COVID, which brings me to my next question, which is around your impressive. I mean, you still love the video, obviously, because I mean, 100%. Even with your setup right now, you look like you've got a cool background. I can't work out how to get a background on here. So you've had a bit of fun, I think, over the COVID period, making sure that you're working with customers, perhaps slightly entertaining customers in your approach to Zoom. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, look, it's funny you should ask. I'm completely unprepared for this, and this is really embarrassing. By the way, I just want to let you know. Exactly right. So you can do a lot with Zoom. So having that AV background. I mean, I was always behind the camera rather than in front of it. But since COVID came along, you're right. It's given me an opportunity to have a play with some of the knowledge that I have, and I got to thinking, if you do all of your business over Zoom right now, and pretty much everything that I do these days is Zoom. It's very rare that I'll see somebody. Well, I make plans, but then somebody gets the COVID, don't they? And then I end up
Yeah.
not going somewhere. Not that I'm bitter about that. It's perfectly
No.
fine. So working over Zoom, why not be the best at Zoom? If you're selling a product and first impressions count, would you rock up to a meeting wearing a tracksuit? I don't think so.
Mm.
So why wouldn't you spend a bit of money on your Zoom setup so when you're sitting in front of your customers, they think the most of you that they can possibly think. I mean, for me, it's a pretty straightforward thing, but there's a lot of people out there that I still see in my industry that they haven't quite figured it out yet.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. I
it's
love
a
the
fairly
people who are sort of down here on the camera, and or they haven't
yeah
quite worked out how to
yeah
frame themselves,
yeah
or
yeah.
yeah, it's really awkward.
Or the ones with the window behind them, they look like they're in witness protection because they're completely silhouetted, and yet
Yeah.
I don't know. Look, there's ways and means to get better. I actually wrote a document that I shared with my colleagues in VMware across the Australian business on how to get better at Zoom. And if there was one thing that I would say that you really got to improve, it's your lighting. That's the one thing that you just can't get away with. I mean, you're in a pretty well lit room there. But having the right lighting, having diffused lighting that's not too sharp, not too bright, not overexposed, all that sort of stuff. That's pretty
Yeah.
important. And in fact, I can give you a little look at my setup if you like, Rebecca.
That would be amazing. Show us what you've got. Wow. Look at
So
that.
so I've got a bit going on. So look, like I say, swinging for the fences is kind of what I do. So, and being previously in the video world, the AV world rather, I've a lot of this equipment I already had. So if I point out a couple of things here, what I'm running is what's called a 3-point lighting system, but I've enhanced it with a fourth light. But really what you want to do is have decent diffused lighting that's front facing. So if I turn off my rear lights and my backlight there, and I'll switch back to
Maybe
the
your
front
front
camera
one
view for
again.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for $70, and that's literally what these two cost me. For $70, you can buy two really decent soft boxes that come with the lights inside them. You plug them in, you turn them on, and you're going to look, pretty close to what I'm looking like right now. The camera, I would say, is probably 20% of it. Lighting is 80%.
Right.
So, and then if you want to go crazy, like I obviously have, then you get your side light and you get your rear light as well, and then all of a sudden you've got a bit more of a dramatic
So they're
feel to
still
your
off
lighting.
now. Turn them on while you're facing
Oh,
us so I can see the difference.
okay, all right. So I'm turning off my side lights and my rear
Okay.
light, so you can
Yeah.
see that my silhouette is not popping out as much from the background as it did before.
Right.
So as I turn that on, you can see my shoulders start to brighten up, and that gives me abstraction from the layer behind me. So especially if you're using a green screen, it makes sense to have a rear light to give you that sort of 3D depth, I guess you could say. So yeah, if I show you, if I go back to the widescreen, this is a $30 widescreen that I picked up on eBay. Oh, sorry, yeah, $30 green screen that I picked up on eBay. I got a couple of stands, a couple of clamps. I mean, it's pretty rudimentary. All you really need to do is just have a decent green background behind you. But the trick of all of this, and the reason that I can do all of these fun things, including having a tiny Shia LaBeouf encouraging me to just do it behind me, which he tends to do quite a bit these days.
Just do it.
Yeah. Yeah, you can if you've got that green screen. There's a free piece of software called OBS. So everything that I use, and I'll share my screen if you don't mind for a moment. Everything that I use that involves video, so that includes Teams, any sort of video communication. I'm using OBS. And let me just. Can you see my screen there?
Hold on, I'll have to bring it into the stream and see
if you wouldn't mind.
how it works.
Thank
there
you.
we go. Yep.
Right. So this is OBS, and OBS is a great piece of software. Let me just quickly add in there. So you can create different scenes. So I've got my bottom third there. So if I click on that, then my bottom third comes up, which has my title on there. A tiny Shia LaBeouf over my shoulder as well for a visual gag, here and there, which is kind of handy to break things up. I've got my wide shot there, and so this creates a virtual camera. So every piece of software that you use that you're doing video chat with sees this as a webcam. So if I go into Zoom or even StreamYard like we're using right now, I can just select OBS virtual camera, and then anything that I want to do with that feed, I can do. So I can totally customize it. I can use chroma key on it, and if I show you very quickly how to do the chroma key side of things, if I go to filters. So this is my chroma key. It's pretty straightforward. You just got to pick a background color and set the intensity, and just make sure that you don't fade into the background, because if you set it too high.
See, this all sounds great in theory. I feel like I feel like I would get lost, and I must just say that it's a little bit like being at a party for me right now and feeling really underdressed. Like you've got this whole setup going on, and I'm the girl who runs the conversations every week, and I haven't got the gear. So
but you look absolutely fine.
To investing in that and working out how to work it.
Look, and I'm more than happy to help you with that. But like I'm not a great example of best practice. I mean, I suppose best practice perhaps, but like I say, I mean, I'm a bit of a nerd, right? So this kind of thing interests me, and I have a background in it. So, but if you just want to be really good at Zoom and look there's those elements that I mentioned before. So your camera is 20%. Your audio is probably 50%, I'd say, especially in a sales call. You want to get it right. But lighting, for $70 you can get the lighting. For $30 you can get the green screen. Zoom and most other applications have a function in there where you can turn on green screen within Zoom, and then put your own background, and you don't have to use OBS or do anything special like that. The camera that I absolutely recommend, you can pick one of these up from Officeworks for I think about $100 these days. A C930, Logitech C930 or a C920. Okay. They are fantastic and right. Very, very reasonably priced. You do those things and you will look great.
Okay, awesome. If you don't mind, can I share after this conversation? Can I share what you shared with me the other day, and the document that you shared on the setup?
Sure. Yeah.
Is that okay with our audience? I'm just going to jump into the chat box for a second, because we've got some people here commenting. So Michael, hi. I think that it says LinkedIn user there, but I'm pretty sure I noticed it was Marcus Batten. How are you, Marcus? And Mal, you missed some of the beginning. I'm sure you can watch the recording. Sorry, you had trouble getting on. Warren, welcome. Amit, awesome setup. Couldn't even tell that you were using a background. Thought you were sitting in an open area in the VMware office. There you go. Impressive.
That's very nice of you to say. Thank you.
Yeah. Amit said self-taught IT professional who has sales and technical expertise. Now that is awesome. There you go. You've got a fan. It is pretty cool. So thank you for sharing that with us, because I think that my next question is actually to the audience, and that is, do you care? I'm just interested to know what people's perspective is on Zoom and the sort of experience they have when they're talking or watching someone or in a meeting with someone who, has better lighting and has made the effort, I suppose, versus not. Is it something that's important to people? So putting it out there, we'll keep talking. I would love anyone to answer that question, because I think it's a really valuable conversation to be having. Matty Courtney says, good to see you, Dave. And so I'm actually just can I divert the conversation completely again?
Absolutely.
While I throw that question out there for people to answer. and just ask you a little bit more about your career, because like we've said, it's been quite eclectic. You've worked for vendors, you've done the entrepreneurial thing, you're obviously really passionate about what you do. So what for you have been the highlights and the sort of biggest, I'm guessing you've enjoyed both the big business and the entrepreneurial sort of environments, and bringing the two together is really powerful. So what have been the absolute highlights for you so far through
Look,
that career?
thank you for the question, actually, because I do like talking about myself, Rebecca. You've probably picked up on that by now. Um, my probably the highlight, the absolute highlight of my career was the day that Stephen Conroy gave us the first big gig where we were in front of Australia's media, and he was about to press a red button, and my show was about to start. Where I was connecting a whole bunch of different, and it was an ambitious project for a couple of guys with a little IT business, and we connected a whole bunch of different locations together, live, national TV. My heart was pounding in my chest. He pressed the red button, I pressed the small green button on my desk, and the damn thing worked, right? That was cool. That was probably the biggest highlight. That the second one was seeing the Sophie Hub in store, and actually on a par with that was winning the design award. But seeing a Sophie Hub as I walked in JB Hi-Fi with my dad and saying, "Dad, I made that."
Yeah, that's amazing.
That was
That's very
cool.
cool. Yeah.
But I have to say, without a doubt, that the biggest highlight was having a tiny Shia LaBeouf over my right shoulder, encouraging me to just do it. That's really been the thing that
Yeah.
floats my boat. Thank you, Shia, and
Yeah.
I really appreciate the passion. It's right up there.
Oh dear, I'd love to know, would anybody in the audience find it motivating to have Charlotte Booth in there with them? There's another question for the audience. Now I'm just going to jump back into the chat box now. Thank you for answering that. And I think that there's some really good highlights to be very proud of. And there's a whole lot more questions that kind of come to me based on that answer. If we have time, I'll come back to them. So Warren Hill says, and hi Warren, says absolutely so important to set up correctly. The pet hate is people using their PC for video, voice. It's always that jumped. I've lost it. That's always terrible. And
Yep.
someone else is saying hi from who's saying hi from Brisbane. Shane, how are you, Shane? Shane Marchant just come on from Brisbane. Tracy says, I think it depends on your audience. Certainly, a professional look can assist your audience if your audience is clients, but maybe not as important with colleagues. You can have some fun with colleagues, though, obviously, with Shyla and anyone else you choose to invite. Yeah, you just invite random famous guest stars into your conversations.
Which is pretty commonplace. I'd have to, if I could make a comment about that comment, colleagues versus potential customers, clients, that sort of thing. Yep, look, I totally agree. But I think here's what happens when you see somebody on a video chat and it looks a bit off. I think subliminally you start to sort of form an opinion of their professionalism, because really, I mean, professionalism is all about your outward appearance, and if you're not making the effort, if you've got mess behind you and you can see the washing, that sort of stuff. I mean, of course, we have to make some exceptions because COVID is a challenging time, but if you're not clearly not making the effort, and you haven't had a shower and you haven't done your hair and all that sort of stuff, I think your colleagues are going to start to lower their opinion of you. But it doesn't take that much to get it right. And once you've got your setup rocking, you can use it everywhere. Every meeting that you're in. So why not? Why not? When you're talking about probably like all in all, between the camera, the green screen, and the lights, maybe a $300 investment, if that. And that's if you're buying everything new. I mean, isn't it worth doing?
Yeah, no brainer. Obviously, no brainer. I'm sitting here in my space. I haven't invested in it yet, only because, to be honest, I find it overwhelming. That's probably more the reason why. Is I'm just not, I don't quite understand it. And I've had yourself and another wonderful friend and colleague, Toby Travener, try and help me with it, because Toby's very, very good at this stuff as well. So shout out to Toby if he happens to be watching. So hold on, I just need to check, because sometimes I can't see who's commenting. So Shane is answering the question. Very important, especially to make it look like you're a natural and not enhanced. First impressions are important. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Matty says, can you tell us a bit about your natural light, Dave? Is it the enemy of a good VC setup?
Yeah, well, natural light is something that changes, and whenever you're doing anything with video, you don't want fluctuations at all in sound, in environment, and lighting. And is that Matty Courtney from Singapore that's asking me that question, by the way?
I guess he's from Singapore, but his name is Matty Courtney. Yes.
Yes, Mr. Courtney from Google. Very nice to see you again, mate.
Okay.
Been a long time. We're former colleagues from VMware.
Okay.
So yeah, excellent question, and it's almost like you knew that I wanted you to ask that. So, with lighting, the bigger the source, the better. Natural lighting obviously is not something that you want. Lighting behind you that's facing the camera, you don't want that either. You want all the light to be bouncing off you, going into the camera. That's the gold standard. But the bigger the light source, the better. So you might have seen, and I'll show you again actually, that those soft boxes. The reason they're so big is because it creates a big light source. So a narrow light source, like a lamp or something like that, creates sharp shadows. Sharp shadows are not flattering, especially when you're a 40-something IT guy that's had a pretty hard life anyway. So what you want to do is have diffused light. So there's one way that you can do that at home, by the way, and you don't necessarily need to invest in these big soft boxes. If you have a lamp, bounce it off a wall. So don't have the lamp facing you directly. Make sure it's a very bright lamp, by the way, but have it facing a white wall. If it's bouncing off a white wall and then hitting you, it's going to be a lot more diffused, and that's what you're shooting for. Big light source.
Yeah, I have that sort of thing here, and it's actually a whiteboard that I've got it bouncing off, so it kind of has a similar effect, but it's not quite as pro as what you've got set up there. So I'm just going back into these answers. Thank you everyone for getting involved in the conversation. I love it. So there's a comment that hi Tracy, I agree. I think this is from Marcus. I agree, but we've also seen some political horrors over the last year in colleague groups. Yeah, so there's, and I've done a lot of interviews as well over the last, a lot of just general conversations with people for coaching and so forth. And some of the things that you see in the back, and you can't help it, your eyes just sort of go to the background. And I think if you can just do the $30 green screen, then it saves a lot of, you can pop it anywhere. You don't have to clean up the bed or whatever it is that's behind you.
Absolutely, and you can have it pretty close behind you as well. I mean, I've got the luxury of distance here because I've got a spare room, but you can have it right behind you, and that means that you don't need to have it as big. And this is I can just quickly demonstrate. It's a fold out. So this when you put it away back in its little package, it folds into a circle about this big. So it's one of those, like the blinds that you have on your windscreen. So it's pretty convenient.
Yeah.
And being that it opens up like that, it pulls all the wrinkles out of the screen. So a wrinkly screen is not something that you want because it's very challenging. But one thing you should know is if you do have a green screen in the house, it's going to attract Shia LaBeouf. So just want to keep your eye on that. Occasionally you'll have a tiny Shia doing inappropriate things, but very passionate things right behind you.
Yeah, he just pops up. Yeah, okay.
From time to time.
Yeah, good on him. He's made a real name for himself by doing that stuff. Well done, Shyla. So we've hit 12 o'clock. I told you it would go really quickly. So I really appreciate you sharing not just a little bit about your story, but a lot about your expertise as well. And I think it's simplifying it for people like me and making it, something that we can all do, and it's obviously affordable as well. So yeah, really, really good to know, because it ain't changing soon. I think we're Zoom is our friend for a long while yet, and even when we do go back to the office, it's going to be hybrid, and we're going to spend a lot of time. So you're right. Why not invest in just making it that little bit better for yourself and for everybody involved? So yeah.
Sure.
So thank you so much. Thank you to the audience. I hope that that this has been useful. I, decided to just change the format a little bit today because I wanted to get Dave to share his expertise with us. And I really appreciate everybody being here. And I look forward to. Again, I don't have a guest for next week, so.
Oh, you don't have a guest? I've got a guy that's pretty interested.
Bring Sharla in next week.
Tiny Shire is like he'd be pumped.
Yeah.
Just give him a buzz.
Sure
He's not been doing much since the Transformers movie. So, yeah.
Right. Well, maybe that's it. Yeah, I heard that. That's a challenge I should maybe roast. I don't know if it'd be Charlotte, whether I can find someone else to bring on. Yeah. So I will. If I'm not back next week with a guest, I may just come on alone and have a wonderful conversation with my wonderful guests who are the audience. So do join me if you see me popping up. Thank you, Michael. That's a really lovely comment. So Malcolm's just said, Mal Lovell, I don't know if you know Mal, he's just said he's picked up some great tips on setup. So thank you for that. And Michael Van den Elzen, awesome example of professional at work. Thanks for sharing great stuff. Take care. So yeah, take care to you too. Thank you so much. And I appreciate your time and your expertise, Dave. Really great.
Oh, absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for having me on.
See you, everybody.